The Sixers got their man. We talked about it yesterday. But is Sixers Nation ready to open their hearts up again to more disappointment, to more failure? We're going to talk about that. Sean Barnard joining us in about 15 minutes to talk Paul George and what's next for our Sixers. Phillies in Chicago to take on the Cubs. Flyers. It's officially official. Matvei Michkov is here. Eagles, so much more. Trend the AM. We're live. Taking your thoughts and opinions on all. We're going 4 for 4 today. We're live in 60 seconds. And a very good morning, everybody. Welcome, everybody, to Trending in the AM right here on Edge of Philly Sports. We are live. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. You know the drill. Wherever you are watching, hit that like button, that share button, that subscribe button, that follow button, whatever buttons you can find and hit to do me that favor and spread the word of the number one morning show in the Philadelphia area, the only morning show where your opinion actually matter. Sorry, I don't have my graphic up on the screen today. Not sure what happened there. But anyway, everybody, hope everybody is well today. Hope everybody is ready to go today. I'm your host, Phil Stiefel, on all social media platforms at Bearded Knowledge, as you see right there. Guys, we're gonna talk a little bit more Sixers, a little bit more Paul George today. We got Sean Barnard joining us about 8:10, 8:15. To talk about the move and also what is next for our Sixers. Other things I am bringing to the table today. Phillies, Cubs, big series starting in Chicago tonight. A big next 12 games till the All-Star break. Is 6-6 acceptable? That's next. Flyers, Matvei Michkov signed on the dotted line. He is in town, and he is going to be on the big club. Right from the get-go, as Danny Briere said, and as he should be. Danny Briere clearly saying the best kid, the best player in our entire organization already. Eagles, saw a rumor that Tyler Lockett might be available in a trade, and I thought to myself, that's an interesting little conversation. Do we need a wide receiver 3 right now on this team? And I say yes. So we're going to go 4 for 4. Sorry, Union, we're not going 5 for 5 today. We are going to talk all 4 Philadelphia teams today, because why not? Why not talk 4 for 4 today? Why not leave all 4 on the table today as part of the conversation? Because, it's what we do. We try to talk it all here. So we got it all. What's up, Eric? Bright and early in the comments. Good morning to you, my man. Eyes are open, TMC. Good to see you. There ain't no content drought. There's no such thing as a content drought. Paul George is not joining the conversation here on the show physically, but you know what it is. We are already loaded the Eagles at wide receiver, but, one more couldn't hurt. Just a theory, just a thought process. But let's start since Paul Barnard, since Sean Barnard will be joining us shortly. We're going to start with a little bit of Sixers, and then we will move on to Flyers, Phillies, Eagles conversation. I ran a poll yesterday after the show on Twitter, and there's a little over 100 votes. Let me pull it up on my side screen here, see where we're at. We're at 105 votes, basically asking, no matter what else happens, has the Paul George addition changed your opinion on the Sixers? And are you ready and willing to open your heart again to risk being broken? And 105 votes in literally 16 hours. And we are literally almost neck and neck. 51% no, they are not ready to open their heart to be broken again. And 6.6% saying, yes, I'm ready to be hurt again. And I want to know, are you ready to be hurt again by our Sixers? Because I don't know if I'm ready to be hurt again by them. I've had my heart broken far too many times by this team. Don't forget the fourth best roster in the East in the NBA currently constructed only the fourth best. But the odds say we are the second best, third best in the league, just from one addition. And I'm not ready to say that. And there's a lot more work that needs to be done for the Sixers roster. And I don't know what we literally physically can afford outside of veteran minimum guys. Hence why we've got the expert Sean Barnard joining us here shortly. Because we're going to need his expertise to guide us through the rest of the season. What can be next for this team? Derek Wolf, former Broncos, inferred what? I don't know. That's Super Bowl or sports entertainment. Heart hurt again. Is Joel Embiid still on my team? Yeah, okay. So I don't understand your answer to the question that's at hand, Brian. Are you willing to have your heart hurt? Or are you saying that as long as Joel is here, it will be hurt? Or that as long as Joel is here, you're willing to let it be hurt? Like, I need more details on what that actually means. So I'm not positive what you're directly getting at with that one. Let me know. Let me know what you're trying to get at. But I'm shocked because, everybody wanted Daryl Morey to make moves, including myself, and for rightfully so. He made the move. He got it done. And there's a lot of on social media right now. A lot of fans are not buying into the Paul George hype, and that's a rightfully so opinion. And my question is, how much of it is because they've been broken? So many Sixers team and organization has broken us as a fan base, and how much of it is they just don't buy into Paul George? That's the thought that keeps going through my head. Stop. Let's not turn this show on its head in the first 10 minutes. Let's wait till the first 25 minutes are gone before we turn this show upside down. My heart can't be broken. Morey is still our GM, a.k.a. Murphy's Law in the flesh. So you're not opening your heart up, and I think it's valid. Now, the casuals say, well, you're not a real fan if you don't go all in every single time. But I think a poll, once you get to 100 votes or more, once you get past that 100 mark, you're getting a really solid understanding. And the fact that we are literally 2 votes apart from the yes or the no in that situation tells me a lot of Sixers fans are extremely skeptical still. A lot of Sixers fans have gotten to the point where they're not willing. I mean, I texted my buddy Brian, who's in the comments sometimes. I texted with him last night, and I'm pulling it up on my phone here, but my phone, I'm like, I said, I asked him, are you really getting into it? He's like, I'm telling myself that Paul George was the best. I've made my peace for now. That is how Sixers fans feel. They've convinced themselves it's okay. It's the right move. But they're not ready to be broken again. It's the DM fixation and the naive fans, plus the content creators made at me for seeing through Groundhog Day. I think that's fair. Is this just another Groundhog Day for Daryl Morey and the Sixers? For us fans. I also think that if the expectations for the Eagles' upcoming season wasn't so high, I also think that if the Phillies weren't the best team in baseball, if the Flyers hadn't gotten if the rest of here's a way to rephrase this. If the rest of Philadelphia sports wasn't trending, see the pun there, trending in such an upward trajectory, how would we be talking about the Sixers right now? How if the Phillies were just meandering around as a 500 team as always at this point of the season, just starting to get their groove going, how would we be feeling? If the Eagles didn't have an excellent offseason, and if the Eagles didn't, have Super Bowl aspirations, not just figuratively in our fans' minds, like the team literally is constructed to win a Super Bowl this year. If this wasn't the case, if Matvei Michkov said, or Russia said, the KHL, I'm not going to let you out of your contract. You are going to play here till your contract's up, which would have been another season or two. Would we have more critical or positive? Would we be grasping for more positivity so it'd be hyped a little bit more or it'd be more focused on it? Does the success of the other teams kind of make the Paul George situation? It's good, whatever it is. Is that a scenario or is that a theory or is that a thread that needs to be pulled on a little bit? 6 more weeks? No, because we're covering it all. The only reason why we're starting with Paul George today is because the guest of the day will be joining us any minute now, and he will be here to talk basketball, Sean Barnard. Otherwise, I would have started off with Eagles or Phillies talk. Maybe even Matvei Michkov talk. And K1, you always want to talk Flyers. Danny Briere clearly said he's the best player in an organization already and hasn't even played a shift for the Flyers yet. Wonder what the season ticket sales are like with Michkov. Officially linked to officially inked and here. I think it's going to be a long, long time. What is going to be a long, long time? The 6 weeks that you got to talk Paul George? Because this is pretty much it this week. This is it on the Paul George for the most part. It'll be generally part of the conversation regularly, but this is the last time until the Sixers make another move, which could be right now, could be later today, could be tomorrow. We'll see. But this is the last time we're leading off a show. When was the last time, K1, that a basketball, like the Sixers signed or made a major trade that we were ready to get off the conversation within 2 days? Like, just think about that. Think about where this organization is, the Sixers, that literally less than 48 hours after the guy is signed to a massive contract, a star player, a superstar player, future Hall of Famer, gets signed to a team, and in 2 days we're ready to stop talking about it. Not just you, because I am too to an extent. When was the last time that this happened? That is the problem that goes into this poll question. The Sixers have literally broken us to a point that's irreparable. All right, guys, real quick for the next 20, 25 minutes, we got a special guest here. My main man from Fox the Gambler, Pick Swap Media, Sean Barnard. Good morning, Sean. How you doing?
Yeah, good morning, Phil. The spirits are pretty high this week. There, it's been a busy day in the Sixers world, so good vibes from me.
Good vibes from you. And we're going to talk Paul George. We're going to talk where the Sixers are here in a second. But the opening topic here was centered around a poll question that I ran on Twitter yesterday, and we're a little over 100 votes on the poll so far. And it was basically like, are you ready to open your heart up for it to be broken again as a Sixers fan? And we are literally 51 to 49%, over 100 votes, dead even of yes and no. And I kind of feel like even people in the comments, they're ready to move on from talking Paul George already, because not because Paul George isn't a great signing or whatever, a great player, because we've been down this road. For 35 years down this road of bringing in guys and having our heart broken. I mean, you have to understand how Sixers fans feel, right? Did we lose him already? Did we lose Sean in the first 30 seconds of the interview? Oh, man. Frozen. Maybe. Do we got him? I see us slightly moving there. All right. You might be back.
Okay. I got you. And I did hear it through a little bit of breakup here. But, yeah, I do hear you about the, we've all had our hearts broken, probably more so than just about any franchise in the city. And that's a high bar to be holding at this point, specifically with the Sixers team. I also hear the pushback, like, it's not a finished product, that the Sixers team still has work to do, that the Paul George was the headliner. But the reality is, I believe there's 8 official guys on roster right now, and that's still with some question marks, because Paul Reed's got a non-guarantee on his contract. Ricky Council, the fourth, a non-guarantee as well. So the picture is not being done. picture is not finished being painted at this point. So with that, I think is all fair to critique. But the reality is the Sixers bought themselves a puncher's chance here. That there was no chance they could compete with the other teams in the East and across the NBA before the Paul George signing. At least at this point, if you get that healthy stretch with Paul George and Joel Embiid in the playoffs, if Tyrese Maxey can continue ascending, which are all things that are on the table, this team does have a chance to compete. And I do love the way that this team fits from a basketball perspective of having a true guard with Tyrese Maxey, having a true wing with Paul George, and a true big man with Joel Embiid. I don't think we see that type of balance at this level of talent across the rest of the NBA. So it is hard to overlook some of the past scars, but ultimately this team's got more of a chance than really any team that I think you could argue in this Joel Embiid era.
So to the people that are concerned about giving Paul George at his 34 years of age, that long-term contract, what do you say to them? And what is Paul? This was still, even though there are question marks and concerns and risks to it, this was the right move for Paul George to be the guy that you maxed out right now, right? We lost him again for a second. There's this new thing called the internet. We're working on it.
Yeah, I apologize for the cutouts here.
It's all
but
good, my
for
man.
for the Paul George answer, I mean, in an ideal world, like some of these contracts are absolutely absurd. And Paul George is not a guy that I'm a 10 out of 10 Paul George guy. What I think the biggest point to bring on here is that like the Sixers threaded a needle in a way that straight up just doesn't happen in the NBA. That we were sold this vision by Daryl Morey, this cap space plan of we're opening up all these options, this flexibility for this big time free agent. And that's what happened. That Paul George is coming to Philadelphia because of it. This is the first player to leave an opposing team and join another on a max contract straight up through free agency without any sign-in trades, without any implications in which there's a return to the team they're leaving since 2019, with that being LeBron James at that point in time. It doesn't happen all that often. And even like in this specific situation, it didn't feel real to me that Paul George would actually leave Los Angeles until right before it happened there. And the fact that he did choose to come to Philadelphia, I think is notable. And while Paul George is not a perfect basketball player, I think people are still underselling like the miles in a gap between just replacing a guy like Tobias Harris. Like even this stage of Paul George, this guy was an all-star last year. This guy is a dude that still on his worst days is going to be a player that I think fits better to this team. A washed up version of Paul George, which I've heard thrown around last year, still connected on 41.3% of his 3-point attempts on 7.9 per game. So to contrast that with a guy like Tobias Harris with a less willing trigger from three, I think the fit's there. I think the talent level's there. And ultimately, like, again, you're just giving yourselves a puncher's chance in the East. So I hear you on the concern. It's a lot of money for sure, but you got to pay that going rate. And ultimately, Daryl Morey found a way to the table with that max contract and sealed the deal.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, if what's the expectation? Obviously, we'll talk about what's next, what else the Sixers are going to do. But like, is now with Paul George here, is the expectation that this team can compete with Boston for the East, or is it still just get out of the second round with this squad? And so have the expectations inside the Sixers organization changed on what their goals are?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'll preface this with the roster still needs to be complete. There's still more movement to do to fill out the rest of this team. But the reality is, I think they put themselves in a spot where they're comfortably the second best team in the Eastern Conference. I still think Boston deserves the respect of having that. But I think this team, from a talent perspective, is already clearing teams like New York and all up there in Milwaukee. Like New York specifically, there's so much buy-in and so much talk about the Mikal Bridges trade. Like Mikal Bridges is a very good player. Paul George is comfortably better than Mikal George at this stage of his career. And I think what's being undersold when we looked at a lot of these options for this Sixers team, the Brandon Ingrams of the world, the Zach LaVines, the Mikal Bridges, the OG Anunobis, the most difficult to leap to make as a basketball player is that jump from being like a very good player to a true like all-star, legitimate all-NBA fringe player. Like we could have sold our soul and talked about how there's a longer window with the guys like Bridges, OG Anunoby, Brandon Ingram, but the likelihood that they make that leap from being this very good player to like a top 15, top 25 player, which Paul George still fits that category, is pretty unlikely there. So the fact that you still know what the floor is with Paul George, I think is huge. And all three of the Sixers stars now, like to directly compare them to the team like the Knicks, who obviously bounced the Sixers from the playoffs this year, Jalen Brunson, I will put in the same mix. When you think about their second best player, which is either Mikal Bridges or Julius Randle here, I think all of Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Paul George are comfortably better than their second best option. And while like the chemistry, the way they play certainly are worth noting here, at the end of the day, I do think talent wins out for the most part in the NBA, and the Sixers are certainly leaning into that.
Paul George, like again, I didn't watch a lot of Clippers games last year. I won't act like I did. I'm box score researching Paul George right now in that aspect. It's not just the 3-point shooting. Is he still, I don't want to use the word elite defender, but he's still a very high end defender and not just an offensive upgrade over Tobias Harris. Now you've got Paul George guarding Bridges. You've got Paul George guarding Jason Tatum. You've got Paul George, guarding Giannis Antetokounmpo, all instead of Tobias Harris. There's that aspect of it as well that, needs to be looked at, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like he's not the defender he once was. There was a period of time in which Paul George was one of the premier perimeter defenders across the entire NBA. He's not quite that anymore. And I will admit, like there was some inconsistent effort on the defensive end from Paul George last year and really through the last few years there. You can view it in a world where maybe a new situation that picks back up. I'm not going to be overly optimistic about that, but he's still a guy who can look these big time wings in the Eastern Conference eye to eye from a talent perspective, that he's going to be not better than Jason Tatum, but he's going to be a guy at least capable. Like I certainly feel better about Paul George having a chance at that matchup than a guy like DeAnthony Melton or Tobias Harris or even Kelly Oubre, some of the guys that we've been forced to roll out in that type of role before. So Paul George is at least in that vicinity of talent. I do think he's a better defender. Certainly than any of those options. And the other point that I'll note, like when comparing this team across the Eastern Conference and looking at how they've constructed, like the Celtics, very much leaned into this positionless, having all these versatile wings that don't really have an exact like box to put them in with Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, all these type players, and same with the Knicks with Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. I don't see a structure in which the Sixers can build the exact same way. And obviously they do have Joel Embiid, which makes things significantly different. You have a big man at that spot. You have Tyrese Maxey at this guard spot. So it's necessary to have that type of wing defender like Paul George. But I think the Sixers are going the right route in which they're building this team stylistically different, which I think is necessary based on how good those teams already are.
Well, we got to finish building the team. We don't have a starting power forward right now. I mean, in theory, we don't have, in my opinion, a starting two opposite of Maxey yet. Because I don't want Eric Gordon starting. I don't want McCain starting just yet or anything like that. So before we talk about specific players, what do they have left? Obviously, their cap space is much smaller. They still have all their tradable things outside of veteran minimum contracts, which I think they could sign quite a few of those. What else are they legally allowed to bring in at this point?
Yeah, it's become a more and more difficult question to answer here with this CBA specifically. And to be perfectly honest, this has been the most strict CBA that we've seen in the NBA, and we're seeing the implications. Like, if you flash back to basically any year before this year, I just think the Clippers cave and give Paul George that fourth year, and we're not having this conversation about him coming to Philly. We're seeing implications like out in Golden State with Klay Thompson and other guys that, like, in the past would have just come to an agreement with the team. They pay a little bit more luxury tax, and ultimately that's how things work out. The NBA is complicated from the stance of there's levels to it. It's not a hard cap type situation like in the NFL. So to try and give like a short answer on it, essentially they have about a $9 million below the tax level. It seems pretty certain that they're going to exceed the tax and be a tax spending team. And for the criticisms of the duck the tax that occurred the past couple years, there are the repeater penalties that are out. They also seems pretty likely they're going to be a first apron team, which has some restriction for what you can bring in. So it is difficult to fully say. The short answer is $9 million essentially. They do have one mid-level exception they can use, and then ultimately go to work beyond that. So not a ton. They're going to be scraping from the bargain bin a little bit from here.
So even in the scenario of trades, because of that thing, they really don't have much flexibility on what they can bring in, like in return on trade. They still have all these first round assets to trade. They still have Paul Reed's contract they could trade. You can't bring in a lot because there's some names. I'm going to throw some names. I see a lot of Sixers fans mentioning Dorian Finney-Smith. I've mentioned these names a couple times all off season. Sadiq Bey and Precious Achiuwa. Like realistically, what's the best type of player that's out there? Is it available in the free agency, or is there a scenario where you could trade for some pretty decent players?
Yeah, definitely a world where they're working the trade market. It does become a little bit easier to juggle the finances with it. Like to put the Paul George or the Paul Reed number on the table here.
Yeah.
He's on the books for about 7.7 million on a non-guaranteed. I do think the Sixers are shopping that with the intention of, for the same reason that all these teams are seeking a little cap relief, you can trade Paul Reed for, say, like a hypothetical couple draft picks. That team can then release Paul, and it's essentially a free 7 million of relief there, which is really appealing to a lot of teams right now. So I do think there's could be a move like that, and they try and leverage that to bring like an impact player. I do think Dorian Finney-Smith is a pretty likely name and one that is they've been attached to a decent bit there. So I think they're going to work the trade market and pretty much fill out with veterans from here. I probably expect like two legitimate high-level role players that I think will come in either via trade or with that mid-level exception, which is hovering around that $8 million number there, and then the rest being filled out with veterans from there. In a hypothetical super glass half full world, you could hypothetically swing that big time trade. I've seen the Lauri Markkanen rumors.
I
If
was
you
good.
want
I'm going to add. I'm going to ask Lauri Markkanen. So there's got to be some Lauri Markkanen talk.
Sure, and I love Lauri. You could hypothetically do it where you bring in Lauri. Essentially, you're putting yourself in a really difficult spot next offseason. Now, if you're asking me right now, I think that's a worthy roll the dice, and you deal with that problem when you get there. I don't know. Daryl Morey's been a guy who thinks more in the long term with that, but like hypothetically, that could be on the table.
Somebody's asking. Last time you were on the show, you didn't mention Jared McCain being an option. How surprised are you? That's a great question because we didn't really
Yeah.
ask about this. Jared McCain. What do you think of the Jared McCain draft selection? And do you think he can provide valuable minutes in a team that's going to have a lot of veteran minimum guys on it?
Yeah, absolutely. For starters, I'm a huge fan of Jared McCain's game, and I do think he's a guy who is one of the more NBA ready prospects. I was very surprised that he did fall on draft day. He wasn't a guy that this was some massive slide. I probably would have expected him in like that 10 to 15 type range, much more than being around at 16. As far as his role on the Sixers team, I don't think he's going to be a guy that is ready to start or close with this team from day one. But I do think there will be games where you absolutely feel Jared McCain swinging like the flow of the game by knocking down a number of 3-pointers. I do think he can grow into being a guy who's kind of a true point guard. He's a good combination, and Daryl Morey spoke about this pretty openly following the draft of he is a win now piece that can contribute to this team right away, and he's still got a ton of upside that he can grow into in the long term there. I do see him and Maxey as a pretty viable backcourt option, even with the size concerns. So I'm pretty excited about Jared McCain and do believe in the long run, like he's going to be pretty beloved in Philadelphia. If you just watch this guy play, wears his heart on his sleeve, plays really hard, and he's got like a leader of men type vibe to him on the court. So I know there's been a lot swirling on the takes on Jared McCain, but I'm very excited for him as a basketball player, and I think people are going to have their eyes open pretty quick to him.
You're not concerned that Jared McCain's 6'3", Tyrese Maxey's 6'2", Eric Gordon's 6'2" or 6'3". Literally, our entire backcourt at this point has no length, and if you see around the NBA, every successful backcourt has at least one slightly longer, lengthier guy in it. That doesn't concern you too much.
Yeah, in an ideal world, like I obviously wish there was a little bit more size there, and I think ultimately they will add a guy who has some more length in the backcourt at least as an option. But ultimately, like Jared McCain, I think is a pretty good defender, even with him being 6'3". He was really competitive last year. The way he could maneuver through screens, I think Tyrese Maxey deserves a ton of credit for his defensive growth. That I think by the end point of last year, he was at least a passable defender, and I would even go to bat to say he was a little bit better than an average defender across the NBA. So while the size isn't ideal and there will be some difficult matchups because of that, I think these guys both are competitive and will find ways to make it work. And in reality, when you think about like the Sixers' shortcomings as a team, it's never been on the defensive side of the floor. It's always been them struggling to score or having enough options. Jared McCain is a very capable offensive option who can space the floor, knock down threes, and provide a little offense as well. So I think it is fair to lean more in towards that direction, and it isn't something that I'm overly concerned about. There will be matchups you got to avoid it, but ultimately I think there's more good that outweighs the bad.
Okay. So obviously we've outlined what's left and all. So what names are really available? Because when you think about, you got to scrape the bottom of the barrel. You see some massive contracts getting given out to even something like DeAnthony Melton getting his 1 year, what was it, like $12 million contract.
Yeah.
Even guys with question marks are getting contracts right now that seem to not fit into what the Sixers have available to offer these guys. So is there we've mentioned Sadiq Bey, Precious Achiuwa. I'm going to throw somebody like Markelle Fultz's name into the hat. I know Sixers fans are scared of it, but he's a longer, lengthy guard who's, improved his game in his time away from Philly, albeit with more injuries. Are there really any high-quality players available that would settle for that vet minimum, that mid-level exception that, because to me, every name I want isn't going to settle for those smaller contracts.
Yeah, it's possible. I still think that there is something to like having a legitimate chance to contend will attract some high level free agents. The two guys that are at the top of my list right now are Gary Trent Jr. and Luke Kennard, are two guys I want pretty badly. Dorian Finney-Smith, I'm absolutely interested in as well. The two categories, the biggest thing outside of those, like those names that I mentioned, positionally, what I'm looking for, I still want like a true point guard on the Sixers team that can be like a table setter for these other guys. That as much as Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid are all excellent, I don't think any of the three are particularly gifted as a playmaker. So I think adding that to really just set those guys up could be really important, and more rebounding help. There does have to be a starting quality power forward that we do not have just yet. It was interesting to me in the official announcement from Woj that Kelly Oubre was mentioned as the starting two guard on the Sixers team. So I don't know if that tells us a little bit about the idea there. But in an ideal world, to me, we're talking about a six-man Kelly Oubre. So we'll see how that shakes out. I would love to add some talent in front of him there. Ultimately, I do think that there will be some win now vets that come. And because it's not just the Sixers that are in this spot, there's a lot of teams that are being way more stingy this offseason than ever before. So I do think that that we're kind of hitting that guys getting paid, and it will be a lot of minimum deals from here.
Steve asking Sean, what about Kyle Anderson as a power forward? I've seen his name actually, Steve, a few times mentioned. Um, you know, I don't know. I mean, who would be that if you want a true ball handler? I mean, you can answer on Steve's question about Kyle Anderson. Is there a true ball handler point guard available right now?
Yeah, as far as Kyle Anderson, he would be an interesting, like basically Nico Batum replacement. I do think it's real disappointing that Batum's not coming back. I think he was more important to this team than people fully recognize. I know everyone remembers the Heat game where he got red hot from three and knocked down a bunch, but he was more important to that it was like his ability to make entry passes to Joel Embiid, his ability as a defender. He did a really nice job on Jalen Brunson, particularly in the early part of that Knicks series. So Anderson to me would be kind of the Batum replacement there. He is a guy that I think probably will be priced a little bit beyond the Sixers range, but certainly a chance of it. So I'm open to Kyle Anderson there. There are still some reports like the Kyle Lowry return or Pat Bev return, which you can kind of have your feelings about that. Tyus Jones is a little bit of an intriguing name out there that I see some chance of. There's a chance that he gets a nice contract from a team the Sixers can't quite match either. But I do think like one of these veteran type guards, even if it's not Kyle Lowry or Pat Bev, which again, I know we've done that experience with both of those guys there. There's a couple names out there in that guard department. So I do think they'll ultimately find a guy and add some depth there.
What about the rest of free agency? Was there anything else that happened in the last, 36 hours that, was kind of shocking? Because, I think it's gone fairly, as expected, but also the dollars and cents have just been, for as stringy as teams have been, some guys got some really big contracts. Was any misses or any hits that you think across the NBA that were really shocking to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm. It's gonna be weird to watch Klay Thompson play in another uniform, and the fact that push came to shove and he actually left Golden State was pretty shocking to me. But I am excited to see this next chapter for him. I think Oklahoma City is one of the big winners. That adding Isaiah Hartenstein, even at that significant figure that they certainly rolled out for him, yeah, he got paid. But I do think that's their biggest need, and I do think that makes them the favorites in the Western Conference because that was their one position of need. They were 29th in rebounding last year. You can kind of move things around where you're playing Chet Holmgren a little bit more at the 4 this year, playing him alongside Hartenstein. So I think that was a massive move there. Those are probably the two biggest things that were notable to me. Also, say Chris Paul to the Spurs to play with Wembanyama, I think is going to be really cool and great for Wemby, his developmental arc. And I think the Spurs are in a good spot where they're going to take a pretty significant leap forward and at least be in the mix for kind of the play-in type range this year, which will be cool to see. So it's definitely some notable things across the league. I still think that there's at least one pretty notable trade between a couple teams that does go down.
Yeah. So is that Lauri Markkanen you're talking about? Because if the Sixers are, I'm gonna be heartbroken if they don't go all in on Lauri Markkanen, and it's a deal that we could have matched or exceeded. So in your heart, where does Lauri Markkanen end up? And then the other big trade name, who we heard over the weekend, the Bulls were even willing to attach draft picks to get off of Zach LaVine. Do either of those two guys go? And if they do, where are they going?
Yeah, Levine's probably the more likely of the two, I would say, because the Bulls seem so desperate to, and the Chicago Bulls have been a model for how not to run an NBA franchise these
Yeah,
past couple
absolutely.
years. Even stuff like Andre Drummond obviously just signed with the Sixers. The Sixers offered 3 second-round picks for Andre Drummond at the trade deadline, and the Bulls said no to that. So rather than taking 3 second-round picks, you stuck with Andre Drummond and then had a team that didn't even get out of the playing game and then let him walk for free in the offseason. So little stuff like that. It's just really bad ways to run a franchise. For the Zach LaVine, it's coming into these same conversations where teams don't want to put up with that type of cap hit for the punishments that come on for his level of talent. I do think the Bulls will overpay to just clear their number a little bit. The Kings are a team that have been in the mix. And Brandon Ingram, it's gotten a little bit quiet on that range. That Ingram's a guy that seems pretty dead set that he will not be with the Pelicans next year. So I think there's some sort of framework where a 3-team deal between the Pelicans, Bulls, and Kings that ultimately shift things around there. And I'm with you on Lauri. If the Jazz actually want to sell Lauri Markkanen, the Sixers should absolutely be in the mix, as should a lot of teams. Kind of the trump card that's lingering over everyone here is if Oklahoma City wants to get in the mix and to get Lauri Markkanen, they can offer more than anybody. And they haven't shown that type of urgency. They've kind of been pretty comfortable on the schedule that they are. So it wouldn't shock me if they're just out of the mix for now. But that's been kind of the lingering factor in everyone's mind that as much as we want to bid, there could just be this monster bid coming in from Oklahoma City that we have no chance to compete with.
So you mentioned Brandon Ingram, and Brandon Ingram was a lot of people's plan B, before Paul George. It was Markkanen, it was Ingram, and then it was Paul George, realistically, for a lot of fans. Paul George and Brandon Ingram are not the same player, but they play the same position. Are the Sixers out on any other major trade for anybody else if it's not Lauri Markkanen?
Yeah, Lauri's only making 18 million next year, and I know I say only, which is crazy
Yeah.
there, but that's something that they could find a way to manage with the cap. Ingram's at 36, which I think is a little bit higher than they'd be able to maneuver at this point. The biggest thing to note, that second apron is really what teams are looking to avoid because it's the closest thing to a hard cap that we've seen. Like we're talking about some of the punishments being like you can't acquire a player in a sign and trade, you can't use any pre-existing trade exceptions, not allowed to back more money than you send out in a trade. You can't sign guys that were bought out at the deadline. There's a lot of restrictions for what you can do. So that's kind of the cutoff that they're looking to avoid. I do think Ingram's a number that would put them far too close to that for comfort. So Ingram's probably above the price range there.
Yeah, gotcha. You say only making 18 million for Lauri Markkanen, but Tobias Harris is going to be making 26 million next year.
Yeah.
That is where the NBA is. Can you just say before we wrap this up? Can you say your final farewells to Tobias Harris and the fact that we don't have to talk about him anymore? I'm so excited that's done and officially, because I will say this: deep down inside, I still held on to like a 2% thought that Daryl Morey would go back to that well and re-sign Tobias Harris.
Yeah, very grateful that is not the case. And while I do not wish any will upon Tobias Harris from here, the reality is to me is he's a guy whose basketball destiny is to produce empty calorie statistics on a losing basketball team. That's just who Tobias Harris is. And like, while the reality is the Sixers wrote out a check that his talent was never able to cash for this team, and that's the bigger root of it. I can't overstate like how harmful he was to the Sixers' chances of winning. That this was a guy who wasn't talented enough or productive enough to be a primary scoring option or a primary option on this team. And he also wasn't good enough at the complementary skill sets, the little stuff, the getting loose balls, the defending on the perimeter. He's got the stiffest hips of just about any NBA athlete that I've seen. So very grateful that Tobias Harris' experience is over. And I think people are going to have their eyes open to how notable the gap is between Paul George and Tobias this year.
I saw your tweet when you said that, the empty calorie stats, because it's basically my same opinion on Justin Herbert with the Chargers.
Yeah,
puts up a lot of numbers but doesn't actually do anything. Paul George has that big contract, and I do see people saying that they fear that that's going to be, just like Tobias Harris's contract. And my final question is, what do the Sixers have to accomplish under the Paul George era, if you want to call it that, to not look back on this? Does it have to be a championship to not look back on this contract and say it was a bad decision?
This is one of those questions. I do think context matters. Like, there's a real world where this Celtics team turns into a jugular, and the Sixers are always kind of a little brother there. I think they, at the minimum, have to get past the second round, and in reality, probably have to win the East. Have to get to a finals would be something that I'm probably setting the bar at. But that's, of course, the goal is to win a championship. And as I mentioned, the whole setup of this is they have a puncher's chance that if you get healthy Paul George, you get healthy Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey continues to play like Tyrese Maxey, that's a trio that nobody's going to want to dance with under the bright lights there. So I give them a chance. I do think that they are legitimate championship contenders and can round out a roster to where every team should be looking a little fearful at the Sixers team right now. So the goal is a championship. At the minimum, they got to get past the second round for sure.
Will it be pretty quiet over the next couple of days, or do you think the Sixers will be pretty aggressive over the next couple of days to get their roster completed now versus over the next, couple months?
It feels like Daryl's been pretty patient, and he's even a guy that's like, don't judge me until after the trade deadline, which I philosophically disagree with that kind of outlook there. I think that in the near future, there will be 1 to 2 more pretty notable players, like guys that will maybe start or be rotation guys, and then it probably quiets down for a little bit from there. So I don't think we're fully in relaxed mode yet.
Okay. Gotcha. What do you got going on today? You're going to be on Fox the Gambler today?
Yeah. Appreciate you for having me on this morning, Phil. And yeah, I'll be chopping it up with Sean Bryce a little bit later. Also dropping some content on Sixers Digest on YouTube, as well as Pick Swap Media before recording tonight as well. So plenty going on. And follow me on Twitter at Sean_Barnard1. Probably the best way to be tapped in there.
Mister wants to do a Tobias Harris appreciation night. Will Tobias Harris get a thank you video when he returns later this year? I don't know.
I know. I'm not sure like what the full perception of Tobias is. Well, I mean, obviously get like the main theme here. The reality is he underperformed expectations and wasn't the guy the Sixers needed. I don't think he's a guy that needs to be like heavily booed. To his credit, he did compete hard. He did try, and the root of it for me is like the Sixers wrote a check that his talent couldn't cash. It wasn't Tobias. Like he just was never the guy that they needed him to be, and that's kind of the reality of it. So I don't wish ill on him, and I do think there would be a nice tribute, and he probably deserves a little bit of credit for sticking with it as long as he did, but it is a miracle he played out the entirety of that contract here.
I can't believe it. That this is the last time you'll ever be on this show, and we have to ever mention Tobias Harris's name again, which is fantastic. But thanks very much for your time this morning. Keep up the good work, and we'll talk again real soon.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon, Phil.
Talk to you soon. That was Sean Barnard on the I actually have sponsors hotline. Guys, you're watching Trend the AM right here on Edge of Philly Sports. Make sure you're hitting that like button, that share button, that subscribe button, that follow button. You name it, you got to do it. I promise you, there's still a lot of you tuned in. We don't have to talk Sixers much more. I'm going to do some ad reads. I'm going to transition to some Phillies, some Flyers, some Eagles talk. So I appreciate you guys hanging in there. There were some really, really good comments, though, in here. And I love this. What will Tobias Harris's reaction be when he returns? And I'm writing that down so I could talk about it on Twitter later. Tobias Harris reaction. I love it. My ban is over. Tobias Harris. Yeah, that's right. We'll get you on later this week just for that reason. I will get to the David R. Cherry in a second. There were some other comments. This one here. The Golden State Warriors castle crumbling down, I think, is interesting. It's weird. It's something. And the fact that Klay Thompson turned down more money to go to the Lakers and chose to go to Dallas. And something's up with Klay Thompson, too. I'm trying to find something. I'm a Markelle Fultz guy. I would love to get Markelle Fultz back in here. I think he's been good. John Wall, another aging guy. I don't know if he could shoot well enough. He hasn't played basketball in a long time. And again, back to Steve's comment, I do like Kyle Anderson. I like the three names that Sean put out there: Gary Trent, Luke Kennard, and Dorian Finney-Smith as three. If I can't get Sadiq Bey and Precious Achiuwa, then Gary Trent, Luke Kennard, Dorian Finney-Smith, they're the guys that I'm targeting. Tyrus Jones maybe as well. They're the names that I'm looking at. But real quick, before we get back to the majority of the conversation, guys, if you need tickets to any big event, make sure you go visit cherrytickets.com. They have no hidden fees. The price you see is the price you pay. Not like the other resale sites where you buy a $50 ticket, it turns into a $200 ticket with fees afterwards. No, price you see is the price you pay. And if you use exclusive promo code EOP10 at checkout, it gets you 10% off. If you need a more personal touch, 610-494-5050. Just make sure you mention Edge of Philly and you mention Trending in the AM. They do theater tickets, concert tickets on top of sporting events. So remember, don't overpay with the rest. Save with the best, cherrytickets.com. And, of course, our great friends over at phillysportstrips.com. They got a great package. If you want to go see the Eagles in Brazil, week 1 of the NFL season, take on the Green Bay Packers, they got it. Great package. Don't be afraid to go. I even saw a report. Don't be afraid to wear your green. I don't know. Anyway, they are the premier travel and tailgate experience company for your favorite Philadelphia sports teams. They offer so many full travel packages, self-travel packages, tailgates for the Eagles, Phillies, Flyers, Sixers, Union, you name it. They got it. Don't want to go to Brazil. Go down to Citizens Bank Park in August for a great tailgate experience. Go out to Pittsburgh, and that's almost 3 weeks away, less than 3 weeks away. They're taking deposits for spring training next year. Go down to Miami to see the Union, who stink right now, and then all of our great Birds takeovers. Again, PhillySportsTrips.com. Make sure when you sign up on their website, you mention EOP, you mention Trending in the Aim. Greatly appreciate it, guys. And with that, we're right back to the comments here. We'll do the cherry read in a few minutes. Paul George better drop 40 on Tobias when Detroit comes to town. When Tobias drops 40 on Paul George, what will the Tobias Harris reaction be? You know the Sixers will do a thank you video. That's just what they'll do. That's just the kind of organization the Sixers are. They'll do the thank you. They will. But what will the reaction be? Everyone wear a 0 jersey when Tobias, yeah. Is that what you want to do for all the points that Tobias scored in that playoff game there? Yeah. I saw this before. What are you talking about with beef stew? I don't understand that. Oh, that's right. Brazil. What am I going to do when week one's over and I can't read Brazil anymore with that ad read? I don't know. But guys, again, like I said, we don't have to talk Sixers. We don't have to talk, Paul George much more this week. Promise that it's not going to be the main topic or the title topic the rest of the week. What the rest of the week? I don't even know what the rest of the week's going to bring, honestly. Obviously, we got a Phillies Cubs series starting tonight out in Chicago. And I think it's important to start to this last 12 games until the All-Star break. The last 12 games, excuse me. The last 12 games, maybe that we have to get through till at least some of Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, and JT Realmuto are back. Is 6-6 acceptable? Is that floating water going 500 acceptable? They're able to maintain that 8-game lead on the Braves. So that is part of the topic. What do the Phillies do? I think they have to come out and win this Cubs series, considering that the Dodgers and Braves are on deck. You need to maybe even come out and sweep the series. But then the Phillies do have a rookie pitcher in, what's his name? Michael, is it Michael? I think it's Michael. Yeah, Michael Mercado, who came up from AAA and will be starting tonight. Big opportunity for him against the Cubs. Big opportunity to pitch in Chicago. Big opportunity to earn that last starting pitcher spot in the rotation because we don't want Taijuan Walker back. We want Spencer Turnbull, but he's going to be out for a while. So that is on the agenda here. I want to know about your thoughts on Matvei Michkov coming over here and your excitement level, and if it frustrates you that the excitement level should be rising, but Danny Briere is sticking to a plan. He is basically sticking to the Sam Hinkie process plan, building for something 2 to 3 years from now. Does it bother you that the Flyers have all this excitement and hype around them, and yet the team is just, let's be realistic, this is where we're at, or do you want Danny Briere and the Flyers to change their philosophy now that Michkov is here, now that he's signed on the dotted line? Do you want them to change their plans and speed up their process? That is on the agenda. And I do want to throw out there, I saw the rumor that Tyler Lockett is available from the Seahawks in a trade. I still think the Philadelphia Eagles need a better third option at wide receiver. Tyler Lockett is one of the most underrated wide receivers in football. Would you like Howie Roseman to come out, be aggressive, maybe find a way to trade James Bradbury out to Seattle there, be aggressive, and make a move to bring Tyler Lockett in here to really, then your wide receiver group is A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Tyler Lockett, Paris Campbell gets bumped to 4th, Britton Covey gets bumped back to 6th. The 2 rookies fight out for the 5 spot in the wide receiver room. Do you think the Eagles are content with their wide receiver group Or would a move for a guy like Tyler Lockett, a veteran, still a lot left in the tank, be something you'd be willing the Eagles to do? Let's see what we got comment-wise here. Mitch saying there's only 8 likes, or there's 8 likes on Facebook, too. Yesterday, the Facebook likes destroyed the YouTube likes. Yesterday, we had like 25 Facebook likes and like 18 YouTube likes. Come on, we got to hit that like button. You got to hit that share button. Got to hit the subscribe button. Got to, guys. I'd appreciate that. Tobias Harris, Crumble Cookie. Crumble Cookie stocks took a huge drop, but yet supposedly like 5,000 new franchises opened in Detroit in one day. I'm going to be sad when that ad read is gone. The Brazil. I'll have to come up with something catchier when that's over. Where can I buy that at? Buy what? The Crumble Cookie Jersey 0, yeah. Maury probably has a case on back order, maybe. Please sweep the Cubs. I think it's very important that we, at a minimum, win this Cubs series, if not sweep the Cubs. I think it's very important, Eric. I think the Cubs are a beatable team. Obviously, Hayden Wesniewski is the starting pitcher going tonight for the Cubs. I don't know a lot about him. He's only pitched about 40 innings this year, 45 innings. So, you know, they're not a great team, the Cubs. We got Wheeler tomorrow night, and we got Chris. We got 2 of our best pitchers and a rookie making his major league starting debut. He did pitch in relief once, like last week at some point, and he pitched well in it. 2 8 o'clock start times on the 4th of July, an afternoon game, which I love that because that will be my 4th of July watching the Phillies, depending on the weather, in the garage or out on the deck. But, you know, I think it's imperative that the Phillies do sweep this team. Flyers on the right path. Next year opens up $30 million in cap space. That's fine, and I get that, and I believe sticking to the path is the right decision. But I also understand why it's hard for Flyers fans to go all in emotionally this season, knowing that the goal isn't to win a Stanley Cup. You know, Philadelphia fans want a championship every year for every team, and anything less than a championship is a disappointment. So how do you train your brain to go into a season watching and being excited and looking for just growth potential for the next year? It's a very hard thing to do. And does Matt do you I mean, I fully expect the Flyers to make the playoffs this year. They almost made it this past year. But you add Matvei Michkov, who is going to start day one. You want him to make the playoffs. And then it's got to be hard for Danny Briere to be like, oh, I want to make a move, but I can't. And I barely understand the NBA and NFL salary cap. I definitely have no clue on what the NHL salary cap situation is like. Dom, what's good morning? First time tuned in, good show. Would like Lockett, but my fear is that doesn't get enough targets. Well, he definitely would not get a lot of targets here, Dom. But Tyler Lockett's the type of guy, if you really I've paid attention to him. He's always been like a back-end fantasy football guy for me because you just never know. He might get 2 catches some games. This is when he was in Seattle. And then every so often he has a 150-yard receiving game. 2 touchdowns. I know a lot of Eagles fans, and we're going to get into over the next couple of weeks as we get set for training camp, which is now only about 3 weeks away. I think the 23rd or the 24th is when rookies report. We're going to talk about positions and needs a lot more over the next couple of weeks. I still think, I know a lot of people don't, I still think wide receiver 3 is an area of concern, or wide receiver 4. I don't like having 2 rookies make the team at wide receiver. Britton Covey, I'm still on the fence with. The one thing he brought to the team, punt returning, we've got 3 or 4 guys that can do it now. I think an upgrade at the back part of the wide receiver group is important. And maybe Tyler Lockett's looking for one more chance to win another Super Bowl outside of Seattle. I think he was on that last Seattle Super Bowl team. I think he's been around that long. I would love a player of Tyler Lockett's playing ability to bring more depth to that wide receiver room for the Eagles massively. More likes than Tobias. Well, all I got to do is get 1 like. When I like the video, that's all I need to beat Tobias Harris's point. Can we be glad, Mitch, that we don't have to have you put in the comments Tobias Harris is less than every single name in the world anymore? Like that's finally over with? I want to troll my coworkers. Please do. Please do. How long does it take rookie hockey players to start making an impact? I think that's an excellent question, mister. And one that I can't properly answer. Big Al does a lot of Flyers work. He was, I mean, we get a round of applause for Big Al and Matty B being live for the NHL draft for hours upon hours, talking about NHL prospects. I mean, talk about some deep dives there from them. Great work from them. But Big Al, if you're in the chat still, and I think you are, answer this question for Mista. How long does it take for rookie hockey players to make an impact? I think the first part of it is, depends on what kind. Someone like Matvei Michkov should make the impact a lot quicker than, say, someone that's taken with the 20th pick in the draft. I mean, in all intents and purposes, Mista, Michkov last year in the draft was the number 1 or 2 pick overall if he didn't have that KHL contract situation hanging over his shoulder, not knowing when he would be here, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, ever. That's why he fell to the Flyers at, what was it, 7th or 8th pick overall? That's why he fell. But he is a generational talent, Michkov, Mista, that should be able to make some form of an impact day one. I mean, Briere already said he's basically the best player on the team already day one. I don't know if that's a knock on the team or just a compliment on how good Michkov is. They are a Cub Colt, yeah. Mercado was I know Mercado, and Mercado was pitching very well as a starter in the minors. I'm not worried about him starting. It is his first start in the majors, though, this week, tonight. Flyers need to get Travis Konecny contract done. I've heard, and this is something that, again, I watched less Flyers hockey than normal the last 2 years, K1. Why do I see, we saw a split on the Paul George. Are your hopes up or down? If I did a poll like a week ago on Konecny, should they get the contract done or trade him? I see both sides being talked about a lot on Flyers Twitter, that they need to trade him or they need to get the contract done. And I would just assume you'd want to get that contract done. I don't know where Flyers fans are coming with this trade, Travis Konecny. Maybe you could explain why I see that being tweeted. Rick, what's up, my man? It's tough to expect a team to sweep any series. Absolutely. I am expecting them to win the series. I am hoping they can sweep the series. Because then you've got 2 really tough series against the Braves and the Dodgers, or Dodgers, Braves, whatever order. I think it's Braves and Dodgers coming up right after that. Which 3-3 in those next 2 series is the expectation at best. Low-key excited. This is the I haven't heard his name pronounced. Is it Luchenko or Lukanko? Is it like or like I don't know. I haven't looked up how to pronounce his name yet. Yeah, but isn't he like 18? Like he's 2 years away as well. In all theory, right, K1? At a minimum 2 years away. Now you see 19, 20, 21-year-olds getting caught up in hockey a lot sooner than other sports. But still, I think it's a good pick. I think it's a pick that in 2 years, he's 17. I thought I heard one of their draft picks was 17. I mean, that's just insane to me to think. That's like some MLS shit right there, where the Union are signing like 14-year-old kids to their roster and stuff like that. Some crazy stuff. When I was 17, I definitely wasn't thinking about playing professional sports. That's for damn sure. That's for damn sure. Like, not only can he not drink or gamble in Philadelphia, he can't even buy a pack of cigarettes. That's how young. Not that you should smoke. Smoking is very bad for you. That's how crazy that is. It's insane. Steve saying, I take Lockett every season in fantasy. He's amazing. He's a great flex option. He's a great guy that in certain matchups, he's going to score you points. He is going to have goose eggs. He is going to have goose eggs some weeks for you in fantasy football. But Tyler Lockett's the type of guy that knows his role, that might want another run under the sun for a championship. The Philadelphia Eagles are destined. They are destined to at least get back to the Super Bowl this year. It's their destiny. It's Jalen Hurts' destiny to win an MVP, and Jalen Hurts' destiny to win the Eagles their second Super Bowl. It is. So what do? We talk about the Sixers. Go all in for marketing and deal with the consequences later. The Eagles are pretty much all in, but they can still do more. And I do feel that third wide receiver position or fourth wide receiver, whatever one you want to put him at, Paris Campbell and him can flip-flop 3-4, whatever. I think it's important. And then you also got a guy in Tyler Lockett that, God forbid, knock on wood, that if something went wrong and A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith went down for an extended period of time, Tyler Lockett can step in and start and play. He could play in the slot and he could play on the outside. I think if Tyler Lockett's available, and I see this comment from Rick here about Hunter Renfrow, I would take Tyler Lockett. I like Hunter Renfrow. I would take Tyler Lockett 100 times over Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow is a slot guy. Hunter Renfrow can't play on the outside. Tyler Lockett could do both. And that's why I kind of would lean towards Tyler Lockett. And when I heard those rumors that Seattle is looking to move him potentially, my mind instantly said, not because backtrack for a second. Michkov is only 19. Okay, gotcha. Backtrack for a second here. I hate when I see in any sport, free agency begins, trade deadline begins, every name becomes available, and they're instantly attached to Philly. Every guy. Every player in NBA that was their options were declined, I want him on the Sixers. I want him on the Sixers. Same thing happens in football. This player's cut because his contract is bought out or whatever in the NFL. Eagles got to get that player. It doesn't work like that. Not every player the Eagles need. But there are certain positions of need that I'd like to see the Eagles do. And we know Howie Roseman cares so much about the offense. Like, he puts a lot of eggs in that offense. He already has Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, the offensive line. Why not? Why not take this opportunity, if he's available, make a phone call to whoever the GM is in Seattle and be like, yo, what's it going to take? Can we give you James Bradbury and a 7th-round pick and get Tyler Lockett? I don't even know what his contract situation is. I don't. And I'm not even worried about that. I'm just thinking in theory about the fact that I still feel this Eagles team needs a third wide receiver. I do. Has Hurts been playing under center? Were you the one that asked this like 2 weeks ago? Because I did DM my man Chris Franklin about this because he's at camp and mini camps and stuff like that. Chris Franklin, I booked him. He'll be on in 2 weeks on this show. The week before training camp starts, Chris Franklin will be on this show taking all your Eagles questions and comments and thoughts. So stay tuned for that. He said that a majority of the offensive plays were 7-on-7, and when they run 7-on-7s, typically not. But he will keep an eye out for that once training camp and they're doing more 11-and-11 start to happen. But what was open to the media, he doesn't recall Jalen Hurts being under center in 7-on-7s once, just so you know. But he did say 7-on-7s typically aren't under center type offensive work, if that answer makes sense. So the answer is no, he wasn't under center. But the follow-up caveat was that doesn't often happen in 7-on-7. So just so you know, I did ask him. I'm trying to, real quick, I just messaged him yesterday to confirm 2 weeks from now. Most have been shotgun because of, his answer was most have been shotgun because of 7-on-7s. That was his exact words right there. So that's that. And I don't know if I want Jalen Hurts under center or not, but in theory, Jalen Hurts under center would probably be more effective for Saquon Barkley, more important for Saquon Barkley. I don't even know if Saquon Barkley can handle the running back or the quarterback not being under center. Remember when we had DeMeco Murray? We made that amazing deal to bring him to Philly, and you had an I formation type running back trying to run RPOs with Sam Bradford as the quarterback. It just didn't work. They needed to switch. Chip Kelly needed to switch that offense, put Sam Bradford under center, and hand the ball off to Murray, but wouldn't do it. So I don't even know if he can do it or not. Saquon Barkley, that is. I thought that was you. If Sixers finally win a championship, do we support them opening an arena downtown? Personally, I hate the idea of the arena downtown, which is weird because I don't even go to games very often. I'm just not a big stadium person anymore. I don't like crowds. And my reasoning for not wanting the downtown arena is that I don't like crowds and the traffic that it'll be, and getting to it by car will suck, etc. But I don't even go to games. If it's going to be best for Josh Harris's pockets, the downtown arena will happen. That's my opinion. Basically, Josh Harris is a money man. That's it. I want to see play action if the run game gets going. Isn't an RPO technically play action all the time? A different form of it. But yeah, I would love Jalen Hurts under center, hand it off to Saquon Barkley, or play action off of it. I'm not sure if Jalen Hurts is a good play action under center quarterback, but it would be a wrinkle I'd like to see. Wonder where the curl route guy is this day. How much did Dak Prescott play under center? And how much did Justin Herbert play under center last year? Two things I'm not 100% sure on. And I think that's something to put out there. Let me write that down as something to maybe Dak and Herbert under center. Wrote it down. I'll see if I have time to Google it. It's going to be a busy day today. Maybe it would be better having Hurts under center with Juergens. I think it's a big question mark on the season. I think if I had to do a power rankings of biggest questions this season for the Eagles, one of the top three would be, can Cam Juergens be 70% of what Jason Kelce was? Like, how good does he have to be? Donovan Mitchell just got paid. I thought Donovan Mitchell was leaving the Cavs, according to some people out there. Let's see here. Refresh Twitter. It should pop up pretty quickly, but it's not. There it is. Green on a 3-year, $150.3 million extension. That is basically a little bit less, but basically what's going to happen with Joel Embiid at some point. I'm glad Donovan got his extension staying in Cleveland. It's one less team in the Eastern Conference we have to worry about being serious title contenders, because I think Donovan Mitchell is not a one at all. I don't think Donovan Mitchell will ever win a title as the number one guy. I don't even know if he's the number two guy on a team. I think Donovan Mitchell, he's what did Sean Barnard use the phrase for Tobias Harris? Empty stats. Donovan Mitchell's an empty stats guy. Donovan Mitchell, more than Tobias Harris, is basically Justin Herbert. A fantasy football player, a fantasy basketball player. That's it. Pretty sure Dak was under center a fair amount when Kellen Moore was there. Yeah, I mean, with Zeke Elliott as his running back, I would assume that. For some reason in my mind, I'm having trouble visualizing the two Cowboys games a year we watch as Eagles fans, and the other games I tune into. I'm having a hard time visualizing it and figuring it out, K1. I'm not really sure. Cam Juergens graded out phenomenally on PFF this past season as a right guard, not as a center. I know we drafted him to be a center, but he great. That was my thing. Like, you could have gone out and gotten a starting center in the draft. You could have, and then you wouldn't have that question at right guard with Tyler Steen. I think you can manage with a question mark at guard. You can't manage with a question mark at center. I have hope and expectations that Cam Juergens will be fine at center. But if you say that you have zero concern there, I think that that's the problem. And he was a damn good center at Nebraska. There was a reason why he was one of the top touted centers in that draft. And he learned from Kelce, one of the GOATs. He learned from Lane Johnson. But you got to have concerns there. When you're moving off of a surefire first ballot 100% Hall of Famer in Jason Kelce, you have high expectations for center. That center is that anchor. The amount of work that that Jason Kelce was responsible for on that offensive line, on calling out blocking assignments, about keeping that line in order. It's a lot to throw on Cam Juergens. It's a lot. See, I'm less worried about right guard because I think you can, if Cam Juergens is good at center and you have Lane Johnson at right tackle, they can bookend it. They can figure it out. If Cam Juergens is not the center, and they also have 2 or 3 guys that if Tyler Steen can't do it, they've got 2 or 3. The Meekton guy, I know he was a tackle, could play it. They got Hennessy. They got a couple guys that could step in that have starting experience at right guard. Who's the backup center right now? If Juergens isn't it, we're screwed at center, basically. More concerns with Steen at right guard. I think in theory, the player Steen is more concerning than Jurgens. But I think the position of right guard is less important than center. So I think that's why I lean to being more concerned at center than right guard. I think it's a poll question for someday soon. Center versus right guard. I love taking notes throughout shows like this. I love it. I love it. Guys, real quick. I don't think I'll have a bet. I'll have a good way to segue today, so we're just going to read it. Cherry Law Firm, David R. Cherry. Give him a call, 610-565-0300. Visit him, cherryinjurylaw.com. If you need a workers' compensation lawyer, motor vehicle accident, personal injury, or if you've been affected by criminal law, give my man a call, David R. Cherry, the Cherry Law Firm. He is here to fight for you and get you what you deserve. Give him a call, like I said, 610-565-0300, or go to cherryinjurylaw.com. Fight and let David R. Cherry fight for your rights. Guys, you're watching Training the AM right here on Edge of Philly Sports. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, follow button. I'd greatly appreciate it. I'm sure there's not enough likes or shares on this show on any of the platforms, but make sure you do that for me right now. Eagles don't have a fullback. If they put Hurts under center, it will have to be a stretch running plays like the Shanahan offense. I think this is very interesting. Fair statement. I miss the days of good old fullbacks in the NFL. Just guys like, there's Kyle Juszczyk, and there might only be like 2 or 3 other fullbacks in the NFL right now that are properly utilized as fullbacks. Obviously, Juszczyk is the big name from the Winers, but that's about it. But I get that. And then Tech with a great follow-up. Yeah, you can always use a tight end. Do we even have the blocking tight end right now? John Ritchie, Leonard Weaver. Leonard Weaver was such a D-bag. Tried to get him on a show like 2 years ago, and he wanted $5,000 to appear on a show for like 20 minutes. Like, what the hell? Who's Leonard Weaver to ask for $5,000 for a 20-minute appearance? Like, just tell me you don't want to come on this show. But yeah, the days of the fullbacks, Keith Byers was kind of like the fullback, running back, tight end combo. Yeah, I'm old. I remember Keith Byers, number 41. Keith Byers was actually a hell of a football player, and I was a big fan. Sorry for my later response. You're slacker. Slacker? Do you want to be a slacker your whole life? Do you want to be a slacker just like your dad? All right, we'll accept it. Was driving. Michkov will be impact player almost immediately, but will need time to adjust to the NHL. But no need to dive all in. Allow him to grow and get his feet wet. Next year, we'll start that ramp up. Enjoy the ride this year. Also, I believe it is Luchenko. Gotcha. Luchenko. Got it. Easy peasy. But yeah, I think that's all fair comments about the Flyers, about Matvei Michkov. Yeah, $5,000 super chat, please. Now I would never give Leonard Weaver say that. People call me Michkov. No, I don't. I just call you Mitchy Poo, and that's it. You will always be Mitchy Poo on this show. Michkov Poo. Now that doesn't have the same rhyme, the same flow as Mitchy Poo. Anyway, final sponsor of the day. Then we'll spend the final 15 minutes wrapping this show up, and that is the Great Dolan's Bar in Ridley Park. For 65 years plus, they have been the quintessential Irish-American dive bar in Delaware County. Great food, great times, great everything, great experience. Make sure you check them out, 24 East Sellers Avenue, or visit them online, dolansbar.com, or on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Tell PJ, Edge of Philly Sports, and Train the AM is where you heard about them. And, maybe ask them, maybe we should be doing a Train the AM live from Dolan's Bar at 8 a.m. one day. We'll call it the Bloody Mary Massacre. We'll drink Bloody Marys, and we'll host for hours on end at Dolan's Bar. So make sure you check them out, dolansbar.com in Ridley Park, my guys. I appreciate that. Back to the just the only missed comment right now is just an Irish 4-leaf clover. Well, it looks like a 3-leaf clover, actually. I really didn't get a lot of cherry bombs this time. A little disappointing, you guys. Mitch, who will have a better record, Sixers or Patriots? Who will have more wins, or who will have a better winning percentage? That's just a joke. Oh, geez. Oh, no. Look at that little tease. Look at that little tease from Big L. Look at that. Let's bring it all back together here. Sorry, I messed up. What? You messed up? Who will have a better record, Sixers or Patriots? I don't know what you messed up. I don't even get what you messed up. Sixers or Pistons. And now I see the question. The Sixers will have more wins than the Pistons. You know what, really? I joked earlier that I don't get the salary cap in sports in general, especially the NBA. How in the world was Cade Cunningham eligible for an extension of $50 million more than Tyrese Maxey? Tyrese Maxey is an all-star, a rising superstar. Cade Cunningham is a nice young player who my man Jason, who will be on Fairway to Heaven tonight at 6 p.m. with me, along with my man Rashad, talking this week's John Deere Classic. He said to me that was the biggest waste of money. I think Jason's more excited about the Tobias Harris signing than the Cade Cunningham max deal. What do I not understand about the NBA salary cap and max contracts that Cade Cunningham is worth so much more than Tyrese Maxey? Because I bet you if you put it to a poll, Tyrese Maxey would be much more preferred on 100% of franchises than Cade Cunningham. It's insane. 11 personnel in the tight end will crack back. They can run, play action. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you on that, Mister. Quinton misses Tobias Harris. I miss Tobias already. My favorite player. You need a PhD in econ to under. I agree with you, K1. In most sports, honestly, because in football it's basically fake, but they tell you it's not. So you need the PhD for that. In the NBA, it's just insanity. At least baseball, it's just there is no cap. There's just the luxury tax to maneuver, and that's it. Tell Jason go Michigan. Well, you can tell him tonight on Fairway to Heaven for sure. Agreed. So based off of his draft pick, that's why he was allowed to get more money. Like that, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Your draft slot determines what you're set. I get the draft slot determines your first contract, and I like that in football and wherever and basketball. But that should determine your second contract. Like it doesn't. It doesn't. Hey, I got lots of polls. Okay, poll questions. That is. NFL is relatively straightforward. Yeah, because you can just cut players and you can work in dead cap hits. It is. But the NBA and what criteria you hit to get your contract slots and that what you're eligible for, it's probably easier to count cards playing blackjack than it is to figure out the NBA. I could probably solve our nation's national debt quicker than figuring out the NBA salary cap and contract rules. Like, seriously. Literally, I could probably solve our nation's debt problem. I really probably could. But I couldn't solve an NBA salary cap. You know what? That should be what the next presidential debate, they should have the presidential candidates, whoever they will be. See that little thing I threw in there? Break down the salary cap. And if they could figure out how to work the NBA salary cap, then they are smart enough to run our country. Does that sound like a good test for presidential candidates? Oh, my God. Coffee's gone. Time to move on to orange juice for the last 10 minutes here. All right. So, to recap for the final 10 minutes, we are talking, obviously, NBA, and it's insanity of a salary cap. We're talking Eagles, Tyler Lockett. I know Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen came in to the conversation as well, so that could be there. And the Phillies, do they have to not just win this series, but sweep this series against the Cubbies? Because I expect at a minimum a 2-1 record in the next 3 games. I would hope for a sweep against the Cubbies. It is going to be needed. Are you voting for the criminal or the corpse? Basically, which one can figure out the NBA salary cap? That is how I am going to determine. I'm going to send them both DMs after the show. I'm going to send them emails, break down the NBA salary cap, and that will determine, what it is. I need to get the 2 presidential candidates on Trending the AM. Let's have them debate my questions and your questions. We'll have David Archeri being the fact checker and calling out their lies. I think it'd be excellent. Excellent. Maybe I'll do a live election watch party on election night too. I love making election jokes. I still say that Saturday Night Live dropped the ball massively by not randomly putting together a last-second live episode this past week after that first debate, because the amount of material they could have had from that debate would have been crazy. What is up, Ryan? Well, how you doing, my man? Good to see you in the comments, my man. Explain David Archeri. And I bet you even the greatest lawyer in Pennsylvania, David Archeri, doesn't understand the salary cap. Do it on a Tuesday and then have them play 3 holes of golf on the fairway. That's right. I like what you're thinking there. I like it. We'll just go to Topgolf and see who can hit the golf ball further. That's all we need. That is all we need. Oh, guys. Oh, man. This has been an interesting one today. It has been. But again, we're sitting here having some pretty solid conversations. And I think that this dead time in sports is actually pretty manageable. You just have an open mind. I do. The Sixers are not done, but the excitement of the first 2 days is over. The Eagles are literally 3 weeks away from getting to practice, and the Phillies are 2 weeks away from the All-Star break. It's interesting. It's interesting. I will put out there that I do think that Mercado is going to pitch well tonight. I think the moment will not be too big for him. Plus, on fact of that the Cubs are just not an excellent team anymore. They're just, or not an excellent team this year. I mean, I'm trying to look up some of their lineup, some of their guys. Cody Bellinger is still there, mashing. Ian Happ is still around, and he's not much. But I mean, I'm looking at from their last game on Sunday. I'm looking at their lineup, and there's 2 names I majorly recognize and know a lot about in Cody Bellinger and Ian Happ, and that's it. Like the Cubs are just they got Drew Smiley on their team. Remember that? Remember that kid on the Phillies? He's coming out of their bullpen, long relief. Drew Smiley. He was a Phillies guy for a second. Klay Thompson, washed. You still respect his shot. I'm all for Klay Thompson going down to Dallas. I think it's weird that he turned down so much money to go to the Lakers. Goes to show that the Lakers are a shit show. And no one wants to go to the Lakers anymore. How funny would it be if LeBron James just balked and said, I know you just drafted my son, but I'm out of here? I think that would be hilarious. Klay Thompson might be washed, but Klay Thompson still can knock down shots. David Archeri, Sal McGill from Breaking Bad. Does he? I've never really watched Breaking Bad, but seen a lot of highlights and clips. Let me pull his face up. Nah, I don't see anything I've seen from Breaking Bad clip wise. I don't see that one. The man, the myth, the legend, Jason Voorhees. What's up, my man? Just that one little what's up. Give me little butterflies inside. Glad to see Jason's out there chit-chatting on social media today. He kind of does. Okay, well, I just haven't seen it. Ryan says, Paul George better not only stand around looking at spot jumpers. Tremendous free throw shooter. Hit. He's changed that this year. Only got get there about 3 times per game. He's not a driver. He's not going to get there more than 3 times a game. He's a jump shooter. That's that. He needs to look to draw fouls. We already got enough guys drawing fouls on the Sixers team. But I still like it. Mavericks are greater than Lakers. 100% agree with that. I miss you too, my man. I miss you every day, my man. We'll have to make you break your streak and come on a show someday soon. Oh, and I love the new car. What's with you and Flash? First you go from the bright blue, sports car. Now you're moving because you're a family man to the SUV and you're going with a bright yellow. I got to question your bright color choice in cars, Jason. That's what I got to do. Jason always has bright colored cars. First bright blue, now bright yellow. I question that. I like dark colored cars. Dark gray, black, dark blue. Bright, man. You are, for a bright personality, you got bright car choices. Paul George is a great three-point shooter, of course, but he needs to bounce it out. But he does it on this team. Because if he starts going to the rim, Ryan, it is going to clog up the middle, which you need open for Joel Embiid to work. You need it open for Tyrese Maxey to slash and dash. Just so you know. Phil, missed you all today. Joseph, my man. It's always a great show. There's no such thing as never a great show. It's a great show, and Jason decides to grace us with his presence. How is Phil? I don't know how I haven't. I'm a very obsessive TV show person. When I start watching a show, if I started Breaking Bad today, I'd probably have the entire show done in 2 weeks. And it would be literally my life. I would watch no sports. It's how in the last 2 months I've watched all 5 seasons of Yellowstone, 2 seasons of Jack Reacher, and 3 seasons of Jack Ryan in literally 2 months. That's literally 10 seasons of TV shows I have watched in the last 2 months. I get very obsessive. And I already know how Breaking Bad ends. I couldn't avoid the spoilers. So California has a 20% state tax. Texas does not. That does help. It does. It absolutely helps the decision making. I don't like flashy car colors. I am not a flashy car person. Not even in the least bit. No way. No way at all. 500. I wish. Like I said yesterday, I was forced to adopt 2 more dogs. Again, shout out in a negative light to NARPS, the rescue we deal with. The fact that they basically told my wife, you better adopt your 2 fosters or we're going to put them down. Just calling them out again. I think it was bogus. Putting us to the test, basically calling my wife's bluff and saying, knowing that. So I need it. $500 super chat. Because now I'm financially responsible for 2 more dogs on top of the 2 that I already got. That already cost me a shit ton of money. Plain and simple. Anyway, guys, we got to wrap this up. I got to get to work here. But make sure you're liking this. Make sure you're subscribing and following it. I'll be live tonight, 6 o'clock with Jason and my man Rashad, talking this week's John Deere Classic. But there's 7-day-a-week program right here on Edge of Philly Sports. There's 5 more shows live today. Fairway to Heaven, Phillies postgame live, and a bunch more. So make sure you stay locked and loaded to Edge of Philly Sports. Make sure you check out the website and all the articles on there, EOP.com, EOPsports.com. Better call Cherry instead of Better Call Saul. Yeah, I don't know. Look, I can't get into shows that have a lot of seasons because I just get too obsessive. I do. Real Phillies talk, definitely still confident, but would be nice if they do make a move for another bat. If not nice, they have to do another move for a bat sooner rather than later. You can never have enough firepower, especially when we get going up against top-tier pitching. Agree. Lewis Roberts is one of multiple great options. How about the Flyers? Absolutely. I've actually spent time this week talking Flyers hockey. I mean, when was the last time in July I talked Flyers hockey? Probably 10 years. That was before podcasting came around for me. Unfortunately, though, Jason, the show's got to end. It's time to say goodbye to all our family. TIAM. Yeah, it doesn't work. If you know, you know. But with that, guys, I got to wrap this shebang up. Everybody have a great day. I will see you all tomorrow morning. If I don't see you guys tonight for Fairway to Heaven, we'll see. We'll kick off tomorrow with Phillies talk. We'll kick off tomorrow with Phillies talk. Any breaking NBA news if it happens. Other than that, we'll stay away from the NBA tomorrow. We'll talk Phillies. We'll talk more Eagles tomorrow. Who knows what else will come up. And this is always the most important. Like, subscribe, share, follow. Wherever you're watching, do it. Get it done, guys. With that being said, ring that bell. Go Birds. And bubbles up.